Transition, the process of change from one condition to another.
We are now at a new crossroad where change is evident once again.
What does not serve us must transform us anew.
Returning to our original state of oneness and true nature of that which created who we truly are.
Confusion was the way of the past. Enlightenment is the way of the now and future, shedding away the layers of deceit.
We now bring you the transformation of the two who started as one. Our fearless planet never stands still.
Earth has been in a process of transition, and we are not exempt from this remarkable ongoing reality. Well, good evening and welcome, everyone. Welcome to Transition Radio Show, Real Talk with the Cummings. I'm Mark Angelo Cummings.
And I'm Linda Ariel Cummings. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have a great show. We're going to be talking about a lot of issues, lots of things that have happened in the recent week, even.
Yeah. There's just always a new development taking place, a new level of hatred, a new level of disgust, trying to figure out humanity as of late has been a difficult thing.
It really is. It's like instead of going forward, a lot of times it seems like we're going backwards, but I think it's more like about the fact that you got to take 2 steps backward to go 1 step forward, I would assume.
And it's really nothing different what has been done throughout history and throughout the ages. The minorities have always been looked down upon. Those that don't fit the mold of a particular group tend to be outcast and ridiculed and eventually eradicated. That's the plan. That's their goal. And it's been their goal from the very beginning. One of the things that we watched this little, was it a TikTok video? And it really brought hope to see a lot of trans people speaking up. And one of the lines used on the video really stuck with us, and the line goes something like this: I know that they act like we are the end of the world, because that's what it seems like. They think that if trans people exist, that's the end of the world, for them. But our capacity for transformation is a model for how to save it. And I truly believe that we as transsexuals, genderqueer, gays, lesbians, are here to show humanity a new way of living, a way of getting out of the box, a way of getting out of the hatefulness, a way of getting out of this way of living that has been placed there by this interdimensional being they call God, and they call their Yahweh.
Yeah, I mean, there's been this control of like religion, from politics, from, the cultures and stuff that has created this atmosphere of like tic-tac fighting, this constant, I'm better than you, no you're not, you're worse, you're like a mistake, or you're evil, you're demonic, even they would say to so many. And it's really sad, because that is not how the world is going to move forward.
Not at all. As a matter of fact, the frequency of the new world is ever changing, and it can't support that kind of life. They're just going to fall on the wayside, because they won't be able to. They won't materialize. They won't continue to be living in that kind of energy source.
One of the things that I had learned just the other day was talking about how by doing things using force, you never get anywhere. You never. It's like just the simple mundane things in life, right? If you're like trying to do something and you're like trying to force it, you're trying to like if you're frustrated with something that can't open right or whatever, and you're just like getting all like bent out of shape, instead of like taking a breather, calming down, you want to do things like really recklessly and stuff. And jam it down or try to, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
so to speak, how people driving and stuff, how they want to cut out in front of you.
Yeah,
And
the frustration leads to more problems, and it's usually it tears you down completely. I wrote this little thing trying to explain my feelings towards this whole craziness that we're seeing unfold, and you could start.
the increase in gender transformation is not a social contagion, not like they would say, not a byproduct of grooming, but a change in our species that is taking place right before our very eyes.
Our planet's vibratory state will not support the old ways any longer. The star seeds, the homo-luminous, and the breakdown of old gender paradigms are here.
We are the light, the path to the changes. The guardians of the reproductive programming are fighting hard to retain their power and the enslavement paradigm. But their time is up.
We will not be silenced, eradicated, or stopped. You have been trying to eliminate us for centuries, burnt us at the stake too many times.
Our spirit has made peace with the fire. The flames that incinerated our flesh burns bright and has become the fire.
Now we are here to bring in the dawn of the new earth. Your time has come to an end. The great mother has spoken. And that may sound a little too woo woo for a lot of you, but as you see the world ever changing, weather conditions, everything is not at all the same like it used to be. There is this inner knowing, this humming noise that is upon us. And that humming noise is the change that you will see. Your conquistador colonizing ways no longer work. They will no longer be supported. Either you change or you will disappear like the dinosaurs have.
I saw recently that there's like this massive uproar over the fact that just the other day, a poll came out that, no, it was a CDC poll, yeah, that came out specifically talking about the fact that 1 in 4 out of every high school student is now identifying with being in the LGBTQ. And not that they're trans necessarily, but that they're either one of the other, letters and
Yeah.
stuff. And the funny thing is that these Republicans and these Christian conservatives and stuff, they think that it's because their kids have been groomed or something into it. And like you said earlier, when you were writing this statement that you made, the increase in gender transformation is not a social contagion. That concept is true because there is not a social contagion that can cause 20.8% of people to identify in Gen Z as being in the LGBTQ. And as the generation Alpha comes along and these younger kids, they're even more open to what's taking place. I was speaking to a person that I know personally who is in Gen Z, who I asked point blank, I said, does your generation really care much about gender and all these stereotypes and the systems in place? And he was very honest with me and he said, no, my generation doesn't hold on to those things.
Well, it's the thing of the past. Like I said, it can't be supported by the vibratory stage. This whole reproductive programming, get married, have kids, was all the commands of Yahweh. Go and reproduce, basically. Give me more slaves. Give me more sweet offerings of the burnt flesh type of mentality, and that God is gone by the wayside. Mother Earth, Gaia, and all the other known deities don't support that vibratory stage. It's changing, and we could see it in the youth. We watch these little videos about these Generation Z kids, and they were like, "We will not conform to your ways." What was it they were saying? They were just like adamant.
Well, specifically to like what Republicans are trying to do in
Mhm.
enforcing their laws and their ways of living and their standards and their rules and all that and regulations. And Gen Z will have none of it. They are fed up with what we have left them. We have left them this planet in such a divisive, destructive ecosystem of existence. This planet is like so divided, especially in this United States. I mean, we are so divided, and you can point to the generational lines to see where the divisions are more prominent, because as you get younger, you get less divisive, you get less polarizing, you get less gendered in the sense of like duality. You get more in the sense of openness, understanding, a willingness to work together, an acknowledgement, a coexistence. The younger, the older you get, the more destructive they are. With how they pit people against each other.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I mean, January 6th was a very prime example of how violent, and how divisive, and how, I mean, we've never seen how divided Republicans and Democrats are right now than ever before. I mean, it's like they make fun of Joe Biden, and mind you, he's not the greatest, but he is our president. Um, they make fun of the word woke like it's supposed to be something negative, when in reality, being woke is better than being asleep. And that's what these people don't understand. They're dead asleep, and they're making fun of the people that are actually awakened.
With all the negativity about Joe Biden that's been said and everything, he himself has admitted that he is a kind of like a bridge president. He's a president who's like spanning the bridge so that we could get to that better place, so that we can get to that next generation that's going to carry humanity forward. And I would rather have Joe Biden as president than a Ron DeSantis.
Oh gosh.
Because I don't know if you guys know about history of Italy and a certain dictator named Benito Mussolini.
Yep.
Who pretty much was like Hitler's best buddy. And they together were fascists, and they together, they did some not so good things in this world.
And speaking about Ron DeSantis, he's just a step behind Hungary's fascist Viktor Orban, and there's a lot of anti-LGBT attacks in Hungary, and they're offering bigoted inspiration to the far right in the U.S. And I guess DeSantis is just following suit. So we have this little article here. It says this month, the right-dominated Parliament of Hungary passed a federal law encouraging its citizens to report same-sex families with children to local authorities. The bill targets same-sex family for breaching the, quote, constitutionally recognized role of marriage and the family. Constitutionally recognized anything. I mean, there are different ways of having families. There are different ways of expressing love. Who gives these people the most authority?
It's interesting because you come from a dictatorship country.
Yes.
And you know what that means when people are asked to report on their neighbor.
Yeah.
It doesn't make a very good society.
No, it doesn't.
Not a very trusting society.
Not at all.
This isn't the first attack by Hungary's parliament on the small Eastern European countries' LGBTQ communities. In 2020, Hungary ended the legal recognition of transgender and intersex people, leading to the end of previous provisions under which transgender Hungarians could change their gender designations and names on official documents. In 2021, the parliament also passed legislation that banned the inclusion of LGBTQ people in school educational materials, which was likened, to Russia's 2013 law against quote-unquote gay propaganda.
Additionally, in 2022, the government passed censorship law that prohibited LGBTQ individuals from being featured in educational materials for the youth and ban companies from making advertisement that support the LGBTQ community if the products being advertised could be considered to be targeting youth. Now, it's like where are we heading? It's like with Dylan being given all this amazing advertisement, the far right just isn't having it,
I
and
don't
they're.
understand why they're losing their minds over Maybelline. I
I
mean,
know. I
what does it
know.
matter if a person that was born male wants to put on mascara? I
Yeah.
mean, what is it? Does makeup have like just a belong to cis women type thing to it?
Or
It's a
anything.
form of it's a
Yeah.
form of art.
Or anything for that matter. What people aren't allowed to advertise to those of us in the LGBTQ community. I mean, they've been advertising as cis, regular, square, heterosexual Christian conservatives for so long. What, you're the only ones that get allowed to have advertisement? You
You
know?
know, I want to also add that there are manufacturers out there that cater to the trans community. They make certain gaffs. They make certain, you know, clothing that is fit for a trans body more so, and they advertise on Instagram, and they have a market.
Yeah.
There's a market. These companies know, Nike knows that there's a market that trans women can provide them. So why wouldn't they advertise to trans women?
Hey, listen, when I started Transition Radio Show, we had a sponsor, the Breast Forum store, and they had a heck of a lot of cross dressers that with lots of money that, paid. And there's a lot of money. Gay people have a lot of money, trans people, some of them have a lot of money. I mean, what's wrong with advertising to different minorities in different populations? I mean,
Is beauty just the domain of the cis female? I mean, because beauty is an expression that everyone can indulge in.
I mean, what kind of insecurity do women have to get so bent out of shape over trans women? I never understood the concept. No one's trying to take anything away from you. There's just as an addendum. Oh, and by the way, there's transsexual women and transsexual men, and there's gender queer, and there's gay, and there's lesbians, and there's bisexuals.
It's called biodiversity.
Yeah,
The world expresses it, nature expresses it every day. The world is evolving, the world is adapting. More is better than less. When we diversify the apple tree, people get to experience the Honeycrisp and the
pink lady,
the Pink Lady, and the Macintosh, and they're not just stuck with the regular delicious red, which is all mushy all the
yeah.
time.
And plus, there's an evolution, there's evolvement, there's changes taking place daily, new brands, new things, new bacteria, you name it, and it's part of what the universe does.
There's a TV show that's been on Prime. It's called The Power. And these women, these young girls and teens, are literally born with a certain new appendage inside or something
that got activated.
yes. By their well, it's very interesting.
Yeah,
if
you
you
gotta
ever
watch
get
it,
a chance to watch it, it's on Prime. It's called The Power, and it's a very I don't know, it's like almost prophetic in a way.
Yeah.
Because there is a change coming to humanity, whether you want it or not. Humanity is going to move forward with or without you.
And this whole religiosity, this whole Christian, and all the Abrahamic religions for that matter, is going to go to the wayside because it doesn't serve any purpose anymore. It served its purpose very poorly, but it did during eons ago. But now we are it's a new age, a new world, a new beginning,
So for people in the United States who've been experiencing and following the relentless legislative attacks on LGBTQ people this year in the US, including more than 450 or so bills across the country and 10 anti-LGBTQ bills introduced in the state of Florida alone. Hungary's escalating legislative attacks on LGBTQ lives sounds chillingly familiar, and the echoes between the attacks in both countries are not just coincidental.
The U.S. right wing looks to Hungary for inspiration. In response to the recent legislative attack of Hungarian same sex couple Gillian Brandstetter, communication strategies at the American Civil Liberties Union Women's Rights Project and LGBTQ and HIV Project warned that legislation like Hungary may soon be coming to a red state near you.
They're sending people from the Family Research Council, from Heritage Foundation, from the Republican Party. There are these journalists that are going, these far right wing, alt right conservative journalists that are visiting these countries like Russia, like Hungary, to find out what they're doing and how they can implement the same thing here. And that's what they've done a lot of times, because like what they did with the children, right? With this whole thing about banning drag shows in public or whatever. This was done because the country of Russia also did a thing to ban, anything having to do with LGBTQ, teaching children, showing children about the diversity of sexual orientation or sexual preference or gender identity. And they did it under the guise of what? Protecting children.
Of course.
Transgender activist and journalist Aaron Reed told Truth Out that Florida's legislature acts as an incubator and testing zone for authoritarian bills before being explored across the country and to Congress.
For example, Florida's notorious Don't Say Gay law got so much coverage in 2022, but this legislative session, dozens of similar bills have been introduced across the country, normalizing the legislation and allowing Florida and other states to go even further in future legislations.
What's really sad is that when these right-wing pundits like a Megyn Kelly or something, she is like so adamant against Dylan Mulvaney and just is so derisive and dismissive and so discriminatory that when Dylan said recently on their last Instagram that they did was something to the effect of, I think it should be illegal to misgender a person in this country. She goes, you can always move to Canada. It's like, why is it that this is what the right uses in order to justify their behavior, is to say, well, you could just leave.
Yeah.
It's like someone telling us, well, if you don't like this country, you could just leave it if we say something that's quote unquote anti-American.
Right, exactly.
I think that Florida is one of the exporters of these pieces of legislation that have moved all over the country. Reed told Truth Out. We've seen Florida be the first to pass some of the worst anti-LGBT bills, and then we've seen the bills that Florida passes emanate for the rest of the country.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy stuff, that it's almost like an experiment that's being done, and they're trying to see how things play out, and then they move it a step further and a step further and a step further. Activists in Hungary and the U.S. continue to protest against authoritarianism. In the wake of the apparent victory of Orban's party in Hungary's general election of in 2018, Amnesty International Europe Director Gary Van Gulik said that whilst the climate may be hostile, we are steadfast in our resolve. We will resist the rollback of human rights in Hungary for and with all the people and groups who fight for everybody's right and freedoms.
Since that election, humanitarian organizations and activists in Hungary have continued to push back against Orban's authoritarian policies. Despite facing harsh penalties for protesting, thousands of Hungarian students have marched against Orban's anti-LGBTQ education laws, the legislature's attack on academic freedom, assaults on media freedoms, and pro-government bias in public media, and against corruption.
And this is just the one way for them to do what they're doing. This is just the beginning. You think it only affects those of us in the LGBTQ, but their fascist plan, is to create a 1984, and that's what they're trying to reel in and using us as the guinea pigs. But it's if we don't stand up and fight against it, nothing's going to get done, and they're going to continue. Here in our own backyard, right, or here in the United States, we have Zoe Zephyr is her name, and let's I'm going to go ahead here and share Zoe's. Let me try to open this up here. Zoe's page. I mean, here you have an elected official, because she's an elected official. And why isn't this okay? Let's see here. An elected official that is being silenced directly. Oh, I need to go and grow. Because why? Because she spoke truth, right? What did she say during that little speech that she gave, that the next time they pray, she hopes they will realize that they're going to have a lot of blood in their hands, right? That wasn't enough that they silenced her for that day, or they like literally voted her out of the
State House to be able to vote in person and to speak. She was literally silenced from offering any opinion. So that means that 11,000 people, 11,000 constituents from the city of Missoula no longer have representation that is able to express anything in the State House. And the only way that she can do anything is by remote, voting and doing things outside. So they basically kicked her out.
Yeah, and I don't know how they can get away with that, because here you have an elected official that is standing up for the individuals that vote her in, and now they're doing this. Although she's very active and she's been doing a lot of, I'm trying to see what she's got here on her Twitter account. She's thanking everyone who came out for the Q&A and the social. It was lovely to talk about all the legislation from the session, both good and bad, and to begin talking about all the opportunities ahead of us. And she's like really trying to keep her spirit up, trying to keep the spirit up of the other trans individuals that she's fighting for. They also had some sort of rally. I saw
last Saturday they had a rally, and there was a bunch of people. Keep going down.
Yeah. Let's see here.
There it is.
Yeah. And they had a great turnout. People underestimate, the power of those of us in the LGBTQ. I mean, we've been stepped on. We've been, like I said, back in the day, burned at the stake.
And there are so many people that aren't even in the LGBTQ that literally don't have any tolerance for intolerance of people and their ability to express and live their lives and just walk around this planet, So I think that there was a lot of people who came out as well, because there was a recent Fox News poll that lists, the things that are happening and what's more important in this country. And at one of the very bottom priorities of the country was anything that had to do with even trans kids. So the United States as a whole is really not interested in making this the issue of our day. This is like such a minor issue when it comes to, but they know, these right-wingers know that they can galvanize their voters to come to the polls in 2024 in order to vote for a Republican president if they have an issue that they can divide the country about.
And that just kind of shows you the immaturity of a lot of these conservatives and religious zealots. I mean, they're basing all the problems that we have in the world, and they're nitpicking and bullying individuals from the LGBTQ. Are these the kind of people you want to run your country? People that don't care about the environment, people that don't care about anything other than themselves, their profit, their God, their people. They don't have any type of compassion, patience for anything that is not like they are.
I mean, we just watched a movie this afternoon. It's called Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And basically, the young girl is caught between two parents who one was raised Jewish and the other one was raised a Christian. And shocker here, the Christian parents disowned their own daughter for marrying the Jewish guy.
Right.
And they decided to raise their child without religion. And eventually, the mother gets back in contact with her parents and they ask to come over to visit. And lo and behold, what did they want to do? They want to indoctrinate their young granddaughter, into their belief. And the grandmother from the other family, the dad, she wants to indoctrinate her granddaughter to the Jewish faith. So there gets to be this big argument in the family room during dinner time, and they're just arguing over where she's going to go with her religious beliefs. And she just yells out and says, I'm not interested in any of it. You guys, this is not right what you're doing. And this is a story of the United States right now. I mean, Christians, you're fighting. LGBTQ is fighting, and Jewish people and all these different groups and factions of religion are fighting. And that's not going to get anything done.
And no one's listening to what the youth really wants. And that's the thing. The youth do not want the old ways. They don't work. I mean, how long have we been waiting for Jesus to come and sweep us off our feet? He's not coming. Newsflash. We are the ones we have been waiting for. We have to fix this mess that we've gotten ourselves in, our environment. I mean, everything is falling apart. The economy, the weather. We have destroyed the only planet that we have. And we continue to fight over stupid things. So you are not gay, you're not trans. Okay, that's great, but there are other people that are. Why do you have to get in everybody's business?
I mean, they're always like insisting on there's only one or two, there's only two genders, right? There's one or the other. You're either male or you're either female. And it's like, and there is diversity within those two. Those people that are trans. They don't have a traditional male body. They don't have a traditional female body. They have a trans body. And they deserve to be able to be respected, have dignity, and to be able to live with everyone else.
We don't want to fit in your little box. And the youth has definitely spoken, and they don't want to live in your little box world with your little labels and your little ways of being and your God and your Bible. We don't want none of that. That hasn't worked in the past and is definitely not going to work now.
You know what? You want to ask about making America great again? Go to the Navajo reservation tomorrow if you could. Ask them if they want to make America great again.
Yeah.
Because America great again means that their kids are back in these Indian schools, or they're being killed, or there's a price on their head for their murder.
Yeah, or their land's being taken away, or their buffaloes being killed. And because that's all this great American dream, which is the greatest nightmare for a lot of people, has done. And they're pushing their way throughout the world. They've been doing that for centuries. And guess what, folks? That time is over.
The church in America is dying. If you haven't noticed, it's okay. It's like there's this Walmart eating up the smaller mom and pop stores. It's the same thing that's happening in Christianity. These mega churches are eating up these little churches, and they're becoming like these big Walmart stores where everybody goes for their religious fix. But the old ways of like them being in these little small churches, it's it's because it's dying.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, okay, so then it's going to go to the Walmarts, and then after that, it's just going to fade off, you know. Because I
Totally.
mean, even the big box stores are dying. You know, this system that we've had for the last 100 years is dying. Um, Stores, even Walmarts are closing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not sustainable, you know. It's not at all meant to be the way that it is. So we found this other article, and it's pretty heartbreaking. Mom involvement with an anti-LGBTQ hate group. What do they call them?
Moms for Liberty.
Moms for Liberty drove her gay son to attempt suicide. They're preying on people, the mom said. They took advantage of me. And that's what a lot of these groups do. A lot of these, anti-trans, anti-gay groups, they lash on to detransitioners, and they lash on to parents that are scared and unsure, and in the end it just turns out ugly because none of these people mean well. They don't. They just want to use people as a pawn.
A gay teen who was driven to attempt suicide after his mother came under the sway of the group Moms for Liberty is telling his story publicly.
A Vice exposed detail how Moms for Liberty went from a local campaign to harass one Florida school board member to a national organization driving the politicians of education in the U.S. in just a few years.
The piece also includes the heartbreaking story of one of those LGBTQ plus students, Tony, and his mother, Carolyn, whose last names are withheld to protect their privacy.
As writer David Gilbert reports, after being outed by his boyfriend's parents in early 2022, Tony was berated by his Southern Baptist mother, who told him he was going to hell and forced him into counseling with her pastor, who told him that being gay was evil. How many of us have heard that? I heard that from a very young age, that I was going to go to hell, you know?
After Tony's mental health began a precipitous decline, he reportedly stopped playing baseball, locked himself in his bedroom, and engaged in self-harm. Carolyn briefly consented to allowing him to undergo counseling with the local chapter of an LGBTQ plus advocacy organization, Rainbow Youth Project.
At the time, however, Carolyn contacted Moms for Liberty after learning about the anti-LGBT group on Tucker Carlson, who's no longer on Fox News show. For months, the group reportedly bombarded Carolyn with anti-LGBTQ misinformation, convincing her that Rainbow Youth Project would convince Tony to have his private parts removed and changed. Because that's the lie they push,
When Carolyn pulled her son out of counseling with the group, Tony told her, "Mom, you just killed me." He attempted suicide that same day. Carolyn continued to engage with Moms for Liberty, receiving a visit from a member of the group's Austin, Texas chapter, who suggested that she sue Rainbow Youth Project for damaging, quote unquote, her son. Tony's mental health continued to decline, and a second suicide attempt followed.
They were trying to indoctrinate me to be a foot soldier for their cause. Carolyn now says of Moms for Liberty, looking back, it was never about Tony. It was all about them. And that's all it's ever been. It's always been just about them.
Crushingly, Tony says that his experience is not unique. He says he knows of at least 4 other young people who participated in a Rainbow Youth Project virtual peer group that have been through exactly what I have been, where Moms for Liberty and Fox News have totally pulled their parents into this same trap my mom went through.
Carolyn now holds Moms for Liberty partially responsible for what the now 19-year-old Tony went through after she found him unconscious on his bedroom floor, overdosing. I'm responsible because I was literally putting him second to all of this, for lack of a better term, BS, that they were giving to me, and I will never do that again, ever, she says.
They are preying on people, and when you have a question and you're trying to save your kid, they took advantage of me. And I honestly believe they do that with other parents. Tony said that he and his mother are working on their relationship.
A lot of people told her responsible for what happened, hold her responsible for what happened, and she's partially responsible. We've had the discussion, and she knows how I feel about that, he said. But she's really trying. Our relationship is getting stronger. We're not there yet, but it's getting stronger.
Moms for Liberty tactics include relentless harassment, smear campaigns, and even threats of violence that are driving more moderate officials off local school boards and pro-LGBTQ plus educators out of the education system across the country, leading at least in part to a teacher shortage that is threatening schools.
As one California school board member told Vice, the group is inciting people with conspiracy theories and inflammatory accusations about grooming that puts trustees, teachers, and LGBTQ students in real danger. They're lying. They're lying. They're using all these lies to get what they want, and that's to rile up people, to get them out voting and voting Republican. And that is just going to be, we could not do another 4 years of the likes of Trump or the likes of even a DeSantis or any Republican that don't care about humanity. They just care about themselves.
I also wanted to, in the future, maybe do an expose on the group Gays Against Groomers, because they are doing so much harm in the social media spaces. And this group literally is the baby of a Republican strategist company. This guy named Alec Brushewitz, he's the one that started Gays Against Groomers. Actually, the woman that started it, she actually works for Alex. And Alex is a young whippersnapper with the Republican Party who is a MAGA like servant. He knows Trump. He's a part of that system. And Gays Against Groomers is doing so much damage. It's spreading all this misinformation about child mutilation, it talks about, and they're like campaigning to put billboards across the United States that are going to be like these big advertisements that are going to like be anti-trans, anti-LGBTQ. And the irony is that they use the guise of them actually being a gay organization.
Exactly. So there's what's happening right now with the conservatives and how they're creating this whole campaign against transgender rights, and they're mobilizing. They've been doing this for a while, and they knew that they could actually I thought I could get into this article, but I can't. But I have some notes on it. So
I have the article.
But this is like the main thing that I think it's really important to share. But they've been doing this for a while, and they knew that they could get some momentum, especially utilizing the whole concept about children and children getting surgeries, which is a lie, because no children gets any surgery. The max that is done is they're placed on puberty blockers till they get to be around 14, 15, or 16, and then they might go on hormones, and then there's no bottom surgery performed before the age of 18. Some of them may have top surgery, things of that nature. But it's been in the works, and therapy and the parents and the doctors. This is not something that's just done overnight, like some of these conspiratorial groups and lies that are being spread. So the real reason extreme right-wing Republican politicos are embracing this issue is not to save children from quote-unquote groomers or make women's sports fairer, because those are the main things they're trying to target. It's because the conservatives elite believe it will divide the sheep from the goats among political candidates who spout the extreme right-wing ideology, but who are not loud and proud on these cruelties.
I had copied the whole article.
Okay.
And it's I think it's important to read.
Okay, but let's
Is it part of this?
Yeah.
So it's in here.
Okay, but I don't know. Here's where we're at right here. It will.
Right, but there's a lot of detail here.
Okay.
As to what kind of leading up to what happened.
Okay.
I mean, if we can talk about what they're doing. But if
Okay.
we don't know what happened,
Okay.
then
How long is that though? I guess. I didn't.
and it's the article.
Yeah, that's too long.
It's not that long.
Okay.
So I mean,
Well, I just started this right here, so if you continue here, and then we'll see what.
okay, but it's going to be disjointed anyway. Never mind. I won't do it. Go ahead.
Go ahead. It's your
It was
turn.
also loosen. It will also loosen the purse strings of political donors who doesn't want to protect women and children. This is exactly the role that anti-abortion politics played. But anti-abortion politics was not a winner nationally, and it took years of pushing right-wing judges to get their way. It was a winner on the state level in red and purple states, though, and there's a lot of states in those categories, even if there's not enough extreme right-wingers in Congress to pass an anti-abortion bill.
Who doesn't want to protect innocent, beautiful babies from being cut to shreds? Because that's how they make it out to be. Like they show these pictures and they like really try to create this gruesome picture. It doesn't matter if it's true. It tugs at your heartstrings, plays on your sympathy. Now, SCOTUS has handed them the right to ban abortion, so they need another similar issue. But just as it is unlikely that Congress could or would enact anti-abortion legislations, it is equally unlikely, in my opinion, that Congress could or would pass an anti-trans law at this time.
Nonetheless, the anti-trans issues as presently conceived invoke the piety around protecting women and children much more effectively than the past anti-trans rhetoric. And as anti-abortion politics did with the innocent unborn children, quote unquote, the bathroom issue, which was pushed hard in the years past, gained little traction among voters in national state races because who cares really where they pee?
Also, there was a large backlash when North Carolina enacted such a law. The ludicrous commercials about adult men sneaking into girls' public bathrooms to molest them, presumably, had little real world evidence or support. If that were a real issue, they would still be at it. The other day, I read somewhere, and we had spoken about that isn't it more damaging for a trans guy like me or any of the other trans guys to have to use female bathrooms? That would give free range to any man going into female bathrooms.
Yeah, because I mean, a trans guy is so stealth, you would never know the difference between a biological male and a trans male.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a lot more dangerous.
They've opened the gates, the floodgates open even further for more problems in the potential future.
Yeah, exactly. So they've been at this with the bathroom things and the trans athlete things, and it's just like it's never ending. They just keep throwing the fish, what is it, the rod or the fish hook down and trying to see what they could fish up and how they could really anger people. It's not going to stick. I mean, they've gotten some traction, but it's not going to stick because all it's going to take is people suing the heck out of governors, out of certain states, because there's going to be a lot more suicides. There's going to be a lot more problems. And like this mother that we just read, she realized, oh my gosh, what am I doing?
Yeah.
You know, it's really heartbreaking. You know, Texas is another one of the states besides Florida who's got like some ridiculous laws. Now they're trying to. It says Texas State Department orders people to dress in accordance with their biological gender. So now they want to control the way people dress, you know, and it's like, what year are we? It's like, I don't even think.
Well, look at him. What year is he in?
Let me share this one here. Yeah, these people are just laughable. Totally laughable, really.
I mean, it's like.
I mean, what are we? He's got the little gun on his little thing here, and who's this guy? New rules could be selectively enforced against trans and non-binary employees. Some fear. So if you're non-binary, right, and you feel like dressing however you want to dress, you might be taken to jail.
There's like a church dress code now. The head of the Texas Department of Agriculture TDA has issued a memorandum telling all employees to dress in a manner consistent with their biological gender. The revised dress code would not only force transgender people to present in a way that feels inauthentic, it could also be used to punish cisgender people who wear gender-neutral clothing.
So what? We're going to have the clothing police. The memo, which experts say violated federal free speech and non-discrimination protections, is just the latest move by Texas Republicans to erase trans identities from the state.
April 13th memorandum signed by Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller, Republican of course,
Yep.
was entitled Texas Department of Agriculture Dress Code and Grooming Policy. Miller's two-page memo said that in order to, quote unquote, reflect the culture, dignity, and professionalism of the TDA, all employees are expected to comply with this dress code in a manner consistent with their biological gender, unquote.
So we got somebody here who's trying to make some comments, but this thing doesn't allow it to go through unless I allow it to go through. I don't know. Let's see here. She was just for the heck of it let it in?
Oh, I don't know.
No. So let's see here. Big Mike says, I do not support the transgender. It's not the transgender. That's not even proper English. Big Mike. That's fine. You're entitled to not support, anything. I mean, I don't support your bigoted ways and your gun-toting, cowboy hat wearing ways of being, but you're entitled to live as a bigoted person, and
you picked the perfect state.
Yeah, you live in the right state, Big Mike. Big Texas, big big guns, big
everything's bigger in
yeah,
Texas,
except for their weenies. Those are small. I mean, that's why they have to have everything big. But you do you. Anyway,
I did that.
Okay, so right here.
No. Right there.
The memo effectively revises the department former dress code, which didn't mention biological gender, the Texas Observer noted. The new dress code requires employees to wear traditional business wear, including Western business attire. This includes button-down shirts for men and skirts or pants for women. The code applies to all work settings that don't require uniform or protective gear for agricultural field workers. I hope that people that live in Texas are planning to move soon, because I would not ever want anybody to tell me.
Looks like Texas is trying to enact a very, very strict anti-trans policy.
Mm-hmm.
Even more so than this. It's like it's supposed to be whatever Missouri did to another level.
That's crazy.
Any staff member who does not meet the attire or grooming standards set by the TDA will be subject to corrective action and may be asked to leave the premises to change their clothing, the memo adds. The newly revised and somewhat vague policy could easily apply to men who wear earrings or women who wear button-down shirts instead of blouses.
That's crazy. I mean, what, 1800? Something like that? It's 2023. People like Big Mike and all the zealots out there in the world, I think you need to get back on that time machine and head back to that era, because life is changing. We are evolving. Your frequency is not really allowed. It won't be tolerated by, the new way. So Miller is supported by, of course, a former president, Donald Trump, and says he's thrilled by Trump's ban on trans military members, calling trans identity leftist social experimentation. In fact, I've got a trans friend who's in the Navy and very happily serving his country. So, I don't know what they're talking about, but
Well, as memo mentions, biological gender, like meaning one's sexual anatomy, assigned as either male or female at birth, the actual term is not based on science.
the term gender refers to a person's self-representation according to the Yale School of Medicine. As such, gender is socially created, not biologically created. Also, because humans and other animals can change their gender or sexual anatomy, trans and non-binary people are indeed part of the biological gender spectrum. Newsflash to you all, dinosaurs.
Neither the TDA nor the Office of Texas Governor Greg Abbott, Republican, responded to the Observer's request for comment, leaving it unclear where the new dress code originated and how the TDA plans on enforcing it.
One TDA employee who spoke to the Observer said that they joined the department because of its diversity. The employees worried that the revised dress code would be selectively enforced against people who are most visibly trans or gender nonconforming or who otherwise stand out within the organization. Other employees refused to speak out for fear of repercussions. It's like, seriously, they stepped in a time machine, they really did. And it's like, people, it's 2023. LGBTQ are here. There's nothing that you can do to get rid of us. You've tried getting rid of the indigenous. You tried to have slaves. You've tried to steal the land. You've tried to do all these things. But there's such a thing as karma. Karma is a beautiful thing because you all will be destroyed by your obesity, your cancers, all the diseases that you all are getting. And I mean, just look around you.
Yeah, just look around. More people walking around in those, or riding around in those little cars.
Yeah, they can't even walk. It's called karma.
I think it's good.
Yeah, karma. But yeah, you get the gist here. So Texas is rolling back the clocks, and they're just, they're being ridiculous. So yesterday, was it? We saw Brittany, what's her name again? Brittany Griner. Those of you who have been living under a rock, Brittany Griner is a Phoenix.
Phoenix Mercury WNBA, a basketball player. She's won, a bunch of MVP awards, and she won a championship for them, I guess. And she was also detained in Russia from, I think it was February of last year till December of last year, because she had some kind of cannabis vape or something in her luggage.
Right.
And she was actually competing for a team in Russia during the off season from the WNBA. But she is a beast of a physical specimen. She is 6'9". This woman.
Yeah, and a great basketball player.
Amazing basketball player. Look at her hands, by the way.
I know. And
that's a basketball? Look at how small it looks.
I know, definitely. So when they say that trans women have an advantage over cis women, I want to point you to, what is it?
Brittany Griner.
Yeah, evidence. What is it they say in court? They use the word
Exhibit A.
Exhibit A. Athletes are usually a specimen. That's why they're athletes. You don't get your typical frail female competing because they won't get very far in the sports. So when you take a look at Brittany and you take a look, let me find another picture. Let's just go a little faster sometimes, but it's not as fast as I would like for it to go.
I mean, if you put Brittany Griner next to Leah Thomas would look like a midget compared, Yeah. I mean,
exactly. And here's another cis woman. She's, it's like they are exceptionally gifted with their genes. That's why they're athletes. What is the big ordeal?
They put a lot of work into what they do.
Exactly.
Lots of discipline.
I don't get it. I don't get it at all. Let's share. There's a website here. that I wanted to share right here. Some of the trans women competing. Okay, here we go. There are 36 trans athletes. Woohoo! A whole 36.
Whoa,
Whoa, that's a
huge.
lot. That's huge. There's a lot of, they're athletes compared to the female athletes that we show you. There's not a massive difference, and if anything, it provides challenge. That's how people get better, when you're challenged, when you're like, it's like alchemy. It's like, how do you make your muscles bigger? You train them hard. How do you get better at anything when you're given some sort of competition? What's the big deal? I mean, how different is this trans athlete compared to Brittany or any other top of the notch athlete, cis athlete? I really don't, I don't understand. It's sports. It's meant to be competitive. What we want to like make things super easy
And honestly, when you do compete in sport, it's not because it's like going to be some massive professional sport outlet in the future. I mean, it's not like 90% or more of the athletes that do compete in college sports will ever go anywhere else in their lives as far as competitors in a professional context. I mean, it's a very limited group of people who become professional athletes. And that in and of itself, people get into sports for the teamwork, for the competition, for the ability to perform, because they love doing what they do. I mean, when I heard Leah Thomas talk about how much she loved to swim, that it was like an extension of her freedom of expression, that it's just something that she enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
That, that was something that was like a part of her life growing up. And I'm sure for Brittany, basketball was like that too.
Exactly. And what was it that they were trying to say, that Leah Thomas had only scored 400 and something? That was a lie.
Yeah, they said, oh, this person who was a male swimmer and 452nd best in the country, and basically a nothing. But Leah Thomas actually had been in 8th and 6th place in the country.
Yeah.
So, and the times that Leah Thomas had won by in the University of Pennsylvania, Penn State, where she was going to school at, those records, they weren't like anything that was like spectacular. It wasn't like she broke any records in the sense of like what women have done in the past. Every record that she ever set for that year in the pool had been broken before by other people that had competed. So it wasn't like she won by like a minute or two. I mean, we're talking about in these types of sports, we're talking about microseconds. We're talking about, tenths of a second, that, when you watch the Olympics and stuff, you see they're on a clock and they have like, oh, and they won by 0.5 of a second, or something like that. And it's like, these people, they act as if there's like this massive like chasm between men and women that can't be crossed. And it's like, men and women are not too far away from each other. I mean, Sam Briggs, CrossFitter, raced against a bunch of guys during a CrossFit competition and came in first place.
Right. What they need to do, and it's all across the board, not just with sports, but with trans medicine, with the blockers and all the surgeries, is do more research, to make it fair, to make it safe, to make it right for everyone, not just for cis, white, hetero, Christian types. There's many diverse cultural sexual preferences, gender identity. It's a very vast, large world. We have to try to make it a world that we could all enjoy, that we could all feel like we belong.
I thought it was interesting because they asked Brittany Griner, and she had a press conference for the first time since she came back from being detained in Russia. And her voice was a lot lower than what people would have imagined a regular female to sound like. And all of a sudden, again,
Yep.
people start spreading rumors saying, "Oh, that's a man. That's not a woman." And you guys, you don't realize how much that woman has had to endure throughout her life as being the albatross, being the tallest one in her group, of having a flat chest, of not developing in a female, quote unquote, standard way. And, it's like she's heard it before, but to hear the vitriol on Twitter again ramping up when they say, "Oh, her voice is so much lower. She must be a trans man or trans woman."
Those of us that grew up in a time where we were made fun of because of the way we looked, we weren't feminine enough. We weren't. If you were born a boy, you weren't masculine enough. Because whatever, we've heard it all, and I believe that there's one of the reasons we are where we are today, because it's like Revenge of the Nerds. It's like enough is enough. Your white heterosexual Christian ways are not going to work anymore. You're not going to bully us anymore. You're not going to tell us who we are going to love, how we're going to dress, how we're going to identify. You don't get to call the shots on all of us. It's wrong on all counts.
They asked Brittany Griner specifically about what she thought about trans athletes competing. And she said that, and this is an athlete, this is a professional athlete, a person who loves to compete, who loves to challenge herself, who knows the thrill of competition and being the best and rising to the occasion. This is a woman who knows how to compete, And she said, everyone should be given an opportunity to compete. And I will always fight for my trans brothers and sisters out there. And this is a person literally who would not mind facing the best of the best in the NBA and be able to compete against them. Yeah. She would love to compete, and she honors the challenge.
That's what it's all about. That's why I said, we want little prim and proper little women that just, don't want to compete against women that are taller, stronger, and bigger.
I mean, how do the women that compete against this woman who's 6'9", a literal freak of nature in the sense of body types? Most people never get to be that tall. And she literally dominates her field because of her height. Like an NBA player in the past, like a Shaquille O'Neal or somebody, who could dominate like that. So, and you don't have women like going, "I can't compete against that because that person's too tall. They're built bigger than me."
Exactly.
It's like,
how about that swimmer, that male swimmer? What's his name?
Michael Phelps.
Yeah, I mean, he's another freak of nature. All the other
dude
guys
literally has flippers. He has webbed feet.
What are they going to tell him? No, you can't compete because you just don't measure up to the rest of the population. You're too much of a specimen. So here we have some sweet, and they said perhaps it should be measure of size and strength rather than genitalia protrusion for division in sport. They need to do something, to make it fair for everyone. Whether it's weight class, because if you think about it, in the is it Olympics or whatever, they have certain weight size for wrestlers, and you can't put a heavyweight with a lightweight. The heavyweight will end up killing the lightweight.
Different sports have different qualifications. In a sport like, weightlifting, or in a sport like in swimming, you don't have a height restriction when it comes to competing. You have people that compete and they swim. I mean, there's different sports that do have restrictions. Like in team sport, they don't have those
Right.
restrictions,
Well,
but in individual sports, a lot of them do.
or maybe they need to start doing something like that and make it fair so that everyone can compete, so that people aren't signaled out and told, "Oh no, you can't. You're a trans woman. You can't compete with other women."
Or
I
if there's
mean,
like a competition where they know that a male anatomy would actually, a person that was born with that anatomy would actually be a little bit more potential to win the event, they could start them earlier or that
yeah, just
later.
anything that
Or,
that'll
I
make it
mean,
fair for all. But to just disqualify, make fun of, push away, it's like we're not in high school anymore.
what
We are
happened to
evolving.
Leah Thomas last year was really ugly because Posey Parker, who doesn't, she's not a swimming fan. She comes to
No.
those NCAA finals in Atlanta or wherever it was, and she has to make a scene. She has to yell profanities from the stands and stuff and make a big media occasion of it.
Well, these people know exactly what they're doing. It's an agenda that they have. They want to sell merchandise, build up their channel, get their fan base riled up. That's what they do. They live, they're ball busters, and they know that they're going to get attention by doing that. And that's exactly what they've done. But, the real issues are being ignored. The true issues are totally being ignored. It's like there are tons of kids. Okay, this article from Yahoo News, NBC, and is that NBC News, says the kids are not okay. Eating disorders among teens more severe than ever. New research shows this. I mean, we've got to really point out the true problems from child trafficking. Which that's a big thing. The eating disorders, the fact that the youth right now after 2020 have more depression and more anxiety than ever before.
I can't imagine what it would have been like to have been forced to go to school and afterwards and still have to wear a mask. I mean, when you see how debilitating it is for someone to be able to be seen, to express, to be human when they have to go to school and be fearful and to have this to like imagine you're a kid going to school for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
and the first day of school you're being forced to wear a mask, and it lasts for a year or two, and that's what you think is normal. Even today you see people walking around with masks, and I don't understand it because masks, they're proven to not be effective.
Right, and you could actually get sicker and stuff like that. But you know, it's the world we're living right now, and it's part of this matrix that I truly believe that we're being. It's almost like we're being challenged, we're being tested to see our intelligence, to see how we react to certain things. And I'm telling you, a lot of people are failing. But anyway, this article says that teens are being the hospitalization for eating disorder spiked during the pandemic, doubling among the adolescent girls, according to the Center of Disease Control and Prevention. While most teens have returned to a normal life in person school, sports, and social activities, eating disorders, especially anorexia, remain at an all-time high, experts warn.
The kids are not okay, said Melissa Freisinger, the associate director of the eating disorder program at Boston Children's Hospital. As the pandemic started and then progressed, we kept thinking, oh, it's going to get better in 2022. It's going to get better in 2023, but it hasn't.
Eating disorders related health visits, which includes hospital stay, pediatrician visits, telehealth talk therapy, and everything in between, more than doubled among people younger than 17 in the past 5 years, according to a recent report from the data company Trillion Health. From 2018 through mid 2022, visits among this age group jumped 107.4% across all eating disorders, from around 50,000 visits at the beginning of 2018 to more than 100,000 visits in 2022. So that's a pretty big jump, pretty big jump. And I think there was something else here that you had. Oh gosh, the child trafficking. There's a real atrocity and crisis of humanity. There's a lot of things going on, and no one's really talking about it.
Yeah, there was a whistleblower from the Health and Human Services here in the United States that said that the United States is actually acting as a middleman to these child trafficking operations that have been taking these refugee kids, like from Guatemala, who don't even speak a hint of English or Spanish. They speak some native dialect, and they can't even cry out for help because they can't even speak. They can't even be understood. So they're being, utilized for sexual things. They're being utilized as child labor, in all kinds of, nefarious things that are going on in this country, and they're not vetting these foster parents and these people that are claiming these kids, and these kids are literally being just taken away from their parents and not able to unify with their parents. I mean, there's been some real terrible things that have gone on in the border for the last 10 years that it just is an atrocity what's taking place. And if you really want to know what is happening to our youth, to the youth of this world, you need to look at what's going on with the child sex trafficking that's happening. Totally. Instead of looking at the 300,000 kids who identify as gender incongruent or something. I mean, we're talking about millions of people. We're talking about millions of kids.
But see, that doesn't get people riled up. It's incredible how the Christians, the conservatives, and the gender crits have really taken on this campaign, this anti-trans campaign or anti-LGBTQ campaign, which really is not as significant as other things really are.
And if you think that this country is going to be a Hungary or that this country is going to be a Russia, you've really got another thing coming, because there is no way that this country is going to allow for Christians to take over and their Christian nationalism to become the law of the land. I know that's what many Christians would want. I mean, there was this one guy, his name is Sean Fuchs or something. He was a former Bethany worship leader in California, who now is like doing these things about, people say that I'm a Christian nationalist and I don't hide it. I agree. If it's true, I'll wear the banner. This is why I'm a Christian, is to bring God's laws to our country. And what's wrong with Christians ruling and controlling the government?
Everything is wrong with that. I mean, everything is wrong with that. It's like there's so many different belief systems, and different cultures and different way of being. Why should Christians lead the world? I mean,
they talk about how this country was founded on Christianity and founded on God, but they don't even look into their own history, because the whole "In God We Trust" motto, that didn't even come around to the 50s. One nation under God and the Pledge of Allegiance, that didn't show up until earlier in the 20th century. This country has never been about God.
No.
It's been about conquering. It's about controlling. It's about misappropriating. It's about stealing.
Mm-hmm.
It's about slavery.
No.
It's about so many things that have nothing to do with what they say that it is.
It's romanticizing. It's creating this storyline that sells, gets people voting, gets people all riled up, God, country, and gun, type of thing. And And I'm sorry, but the new way of living, this new earth, is not going to hold that frequency at all. People are in for a rude awakening, and you know, it's just not going to be supported at all.
It won't be. And the refreshing thing is that the youth of today, they're like the barometer. They're the ones who are gonna to that you're gonna be able to look at and go, oh, okay, the world is changing, you
Yeah.
know, because the youth, they are so fed up, and come 2024, they're going to be a voting bloc that is going to probably put the Republican Party in the dustbin of history.
Yeah, because they're not going to vote Republican, that's for sure. They're worried about their environment. They're worried about being killed in school with all these guns. Because these Republicans don't care about any of that. They really don't, and it's showing. And the new voting class of people, the new voting bloc is not going to vote Republican. Y'all are going to be like dinosaurs, and
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
just how it's going to be.
you gauge the youth, and yeah, there's going to be some that are caught up into this right wing frenzy and stuff. I mean, Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, and all those people, they're doing their best to try to recruit kids from across different college campuses and everything. But honestly, I think they're going to really come up short, just like they did during the 2022 midterms. They came up short
Yeah.
because you can't win on a campaign of hate.
No,
You really can't.
love always wins, and that's how it goes. All right, guys. I hope you guys have enjoyed our podcast here. You guys have any questions that you want us to answer? Now's the time before we bid goodbye. If anybody wants to ask any questions, do so right now. I think that everything's going to change back. Right now we're just going through a period, and those that don't want to let go of control are doing everything they can. And it's like the last hurrah,
Yeah.
and you can't change what's going to take place because, like I said, Mother Earth, source of all, will not hold that negative energy in its field. It will be destroyed. It can't sustain itself.
It's like time. You look at the clock, you see the second hand. It's always moving forward. It's always going a step ahead and a step ahead and a step ahead. It's never going backwards. It's always going forward. So we're moving to a new age. We're in the process of that new age happening right now. So the feel of uncomfortableness, the sense of like, wait a minute, something's not quite the same here, something's different, something doesn't feel right. It's because it isn't. We don't live in the same world as we did back in 2020, even before that.
Yeah.
We don't live in the same world as those of us who remember 2001, when the towers fell.
Yeah.
We don't live in the same world as
everything's
our
changed.
grandparents did.
It's, there's, I don't know how to even put it, but can't even put my finger on it. But just like the movie Matrix, when Neo was like, he felt something just wasn't the same. And there's just this feeling that I'm sure many of you are feeling right now. The world is changing, and it's never going to be like it was before. And it's almost like humanity's DNA is going to be altered, and the way that we've lived will no longer be. I don't know how to explain it, but I know that we're going to wake up one of these mornings and everything's just going to be so different. And all the hatred, all the anger, all the destruction, all the greed, all the self-serving attitudes are going to disappear. And there might be a division between humanity. There might be people staying in the third dimension while other people will rise to a different dimension. You might wake up tomorrow morning in a different place or the next day. I don't know how to explain it, but something is definitely up, you know? But anyway, guys, since there's no question and no one's calling in, we're going to go ahead and bid you good night. Hope you guys have a great remainder of Sunday evening. I mean, we're here in Pacific time. It's kind of late over in the Florida side, Eastern Standard Time. But hope you guys enjoyed the little podcast. We'll catch you guys next week sometime. We love you guys. But remember to always love yourselves too and each other. Good night.